The British monarchy is facing its greatest crisis since the abdication of 1936. As the institution reels from scandal, sickness, and sinking popularity, it appears more fragile than ever. The arrest of a senior royal, a king battling cancer, and a public that seems to be falling out of love with the crown have created a perfect storm, one that many believe could spell the beginning of the end. But what if this was all foreseen? What if the late Queen Elizabeth II, a monarch defined by her strategic foresight, saw this all coming? As headlines question the very future of the British monarchy, a compelling theory is emerging that a secret plan, set in motion years ago by the Queen herself, was designed for this exact moment of crisis. This is the story of that theory, the Queen's desperate plot to save the crown. A gambit that is only now, years after her death, beginning to unfold. The question is no longer just whether the monarchy can survive, but whether the Queen's final secret strategy will be enough to save it from itself. The year 2026 brought a seismic shock that reverberated from the halls of Buckingham Palace to every corner of the globe. In February, the former Prince Andrew, the late Queen's own son, was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office, a grave accusation linked to his infamous association with the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. He was held for questioning for several hours before being released under investigation. The move marked the first time a senior member of the royal family had been taken into custody since the 17th century, a historical stain of unimaginable proportions. The palace, once a fortress of arcane protocols, could only issue a chillingly modern statement from the king. The law must take its course. It was a declaration that the old rules no longer applied. No one was untouchable. This calamity didn't happen in a vacuum. It struck an institution already on its knees. King Charles III, on the throne for less than 4 years, was waging his own private war. Diagnosed with cancer in February 2024, the king had bravely continued his duties from behind the scenes. By late 2025, he announced a reduction in his treatment, a piece of hopeful news in a dark time. But full remission remained unconfirmed, and his public appearances were scarce. The frailty of the king's health, coupled with the disgrace of his brother, left the monarchy looking dangerously threadbare. The public, the ultimate arbiter of the monarchy's fate, was beginning to turn. Polling numbers started to show deep cracks. A Savannah poll in February 2026 showed support for the monarchy had fallen to just 45%. This prompted figures like former royal butler Paul Burrell to make a dramatic public plea, openly urging King Charles to consider the unthinkable, abdication for the good of the crown. The nation, he claimed, was falling out of love with its 1,000-year-old institution. With the king's health uncertain and his brother's reputation in ruins, the weight of the world fell upon the shoulders of one couple, the Prince and Princess of Wales. William and Kate, with their steadfast popularity, were suddenly being described not merely as the future, but as the monarchy's last line of defense. The stage was set for a battle for survival. But was this a battle the Queen had been planning for all along? To understand the theory of a desperate plot, you first have to understand the fear that might have forged it. Queen Elizabeth II wasn't born to be queen. She was a child, living a relatively quiet life, until a crisis of unprecedented scale threw her family and the nation into turmoil. In 1936, her uncle, King Edward VIII, chose love over duty, abdicating the throne to marry the American divorcee Wallis Simpson. It wasn't just a family drama. It was a constitutional disaster that shook the very foundations of the monarchy. It proved that the institution, for all its ancient lineage, was vulnerable to the very human failings of the person wearing the crown. For the young Princess Elizabeth, this was a formative lesson. She watched as her father, George VI, reluctantly took on a burden he never wanted, his health suffering under the immense strain. She saw firsthand how one person's choices could threaten to bring the entire thing crumbling down. The abdication crisis instilled in her a deep, almost religious devotion to duty, stability, and continuity. Her life's mission became to ensure that such a crisis would never happen again on her watch. She would be the anchor, but the threats never stopped. Her reign was a masterclass in navigating crises. The slow-motion collapse of her children's marriages in the 1990s, her annus horribilis, painted a picture of a family in disarray. Yet, nothing could prepare her for the tidal wave of public fury that followed the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, in 1997. The initial silence from the palace was seen as cold and out of touch. The public, grieving for the people's princess, turned on the monarchy. For a few tense days, it felt as though centuries of deference had evaporated overnight. It was only when she returned to London and delivered a landmark address that the tide began to turn. This crisis taught her another vital lesson. Tradition alone wasn't enough. The monarchy had to be seen as responsive and human. It had to earn its place. These events, the abdication that put her on the throne and the public backlash that almost derailed it, are thought to have become the guiding principles of her reign. She knew scandal was inevitable and that human weakness was a constant threat. And so, with the long view that only a monarch of her experience could possess, it's argued she began to lay the groundwork for a plan to safeguard the future, a plan designed to protect the institution from her own family. There was no single document titled the Monarchy Survival Plan. The theory of the Queen's plot isn't about a conspiracy hatched in a smoke-filled room. It suggests a subtle, decades-long strategy of chess moves and image crafting. The Queen gave them her blessing, her guidance, and, most importantly, space. She allowed them to build a solid family foundation away from the intense glare of full-time royal duty in their early years. You could argue this was an investment. She was nurturing the monarchy's greatest asset. Recent polling validates this strategy, with the Prince and Princess of Wales remaining the most popular royals, their approval ratings staying high even as scandals engulfed the rest of the family. They weren't just a backup, they were being meticulously positioned as the standard bearers. The second pillar of the theory, the ruthless isolation of threats. For the monarchy to appear clean, any stained elements had to be cut away. This was deployed, though painfully, with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. While their departure was their choice, the firm institutional line drawn afterward was a clear signal. You are either with the firm, or you are outside of it. But the ultimate test of this pillar came with her own son, Andrew. For years, the Queen was accused of having a blind spot for her reportedly favorite child. However, as the Epstein scandal became an undeniable threat, the institutional survival instinct, honed over a lifetime, took over. Andrew was removed from public duties and stripped of his patronages. This was a painful but necessary surgery. The final, brutal step would be left to her successor, but the Queen had laid the groundwork. She had shown that not even a son was more important than the crown. The third pillar was the slow move toward a slimmed-down monarchy. This was a concept King Charles had long championed, but a transition the Queen quietly began. She understood that in an age of public scrutiny, a sprawling royal family was a recipe for resentment. By centralizing focus on the direct line of succession, herself, Charles, William, and his children, she began to manage public perception. The current crisis has simply accelerated this process out of necessity, leaving a core group to handle an immense workload. The final pillar was perhaps the most important, reinforcing the mystique of the crown itself, separate from the flawed humans who wear it. The Queen's entire life was a performance of this idea. Her famous stoicism and unwavering dedication were designed to elevate the office above the person. She believed that familiarity bred contempt. The crown was an idea, a symbol of continuity, and she was merely its temporary custodian. Her plan, it seems, was to ensure this ethos of duty was passed down, particularly to William. The goal was to create a monarchy so focused on duty that it could withstand the personal failings of its members. Whether the Queen laid the tracks or not, the crises of 2025 and 2026 have been the roaring locomotive, forcing the royal family down a path that looks exactly like the one she might have envisioned. The moves being made by King Charles and Prince William aren't just reactions. They can be seen as the final maneuvers in this theoretical gambit. The most dramatic example is the handling of Prince Andrew. While the Queen initiated his removal from public life, it was King Charles who delivered the final, institutional blow. In October 2025, even before the arrest, Charles stripped his brother of all remaining royal titles. It was a move many believe the Queen would have been hesitant to make herself, but it was the logical conclusion of the strategy she had started. It was a clear signal that the survival of the institution, as she had taught, was paramount. Then came the arrest in early 2026. The palace's response was a masterclass in calculated coldness. The statement that the law must take its course was unprecedented. For centuries, the unspoken rule was that the institution protected its own. This was a public execution of that principle. It was the monarchy sacrificing one of its own for the greater good. Experts have noted that Prince William, in particular, has pushed for this harder line, with sources saying he's made a firm decision to keep his uncle away from his family. In a rare candid moment in February 2026, William admitted he was not in a calm state, a comment widely seen as reflecting the immense pressure of the scandal. He is playing the long game she taught him. Simultaneously, the first pillar of the theory, the elevation of William and Kate, has become the monarchy's only viable public-facing strategy. With King Charles limiting his duties, William and Kate have been thrust into the spotlight as never before. Kate, in remission after her own cancer diagnosis in 2024, has been praised for her use of soft power, representing a modern, compassionate monarchy as she returned to public duties. They are undertaking the bulk of engagements and providing the images of stability the monarchy desperately needs. They are no longer the future. They are the present, their popularity acting as a firewall against the flames of scandal. The slimmed-down monarchy is no longer a talking point. It's the stark reality on the ground. The working royals are a skeleton crew shouldering an immense burden. While this presents challenges, it also aligns with the long-term vision of a more focused institution. The current situation, while born of crisis, is forcing the monarchy to become the very thing the Queen allegedly knew it needed to be to survive. It is a painful, chaotic transformation, but one that seems to follow a blueprint she may have left behind. The House of Windsor is weathering a storm more ferocious than any it has faced in nearly a century. The twin crises of a king's illness and a prince's disgrace have tested the monarchy to its absolute limit, raising the ultimate question: will it survive? Critics point to dwindling poll numbers and the growing momentum of republicanism as proof that the institution's time is finally running out. The arrest of Prince Andrew, whose unfavorability with the public is near total, is seen by many as a fatal symptom of a deep-seated sickness of privilege. And yet, the institution endures. It has survived abdications, wars, and the death of its most iconic figures. The key to its survival may lie in the very theory we've explored, a strategy of ruthless pragmatism. By elevating the popular and untarnished, isolating the toxic, and slimming the firm down to its essential core, did the Queen give it the tools it needed to navigate this exact moment? King Charles and Prince William are arguably completing the final, painful stages of a necessary overhaul. They are sacrificing a brother and a son to save the crown. They are leaning on the immense popularity of the Princess of Wales as a shield. They are demonstrating that the institution is more important than any one individual. The Queen is gone, but her plan to secure the monarchy's survival may just be unfolding before our very eyes. It is a high-stakes gambit, one that is transforming the monarchy in real,